caught my mom cheating on my dad. Later, I found her messages where she said, maybe I just have to kill him about me. I showed my dad everything, and now her life is ruined. Hey, Reddit. My life at home hasn't exactly been easy. Dad works all the time, and mom, well, let's just say things weren't what they looked like from the outside. I kept my mouth shut for years, but something happened that forced me to finally speak up. What followed pretty much changed everything about our family. I, 16 male, am disabled in a wheelchair. I've been stuck in it most of my life, so at this point it's not even something I think about every second of the day. It's just normal for me. What's not normal is how my home life has always felt more like a punishment than anything. My dad works insane hours. He's a good guy, don't get me wrong, but he's always been on the road or pulling long shifts. He thought keeping the lights on and paying the bills was all that mattered, and I get it, but it meant I was left alone with my mom most of the time. And she wasn't exactly the warm hugs and hot dinners type. When I was little, I used to think she just didn't know how to handle me being in a wheelchair. Maybe I was too much for her, like I needed extra attention she didn't want to give. But as I got older, it became obvious she just didn't want to be a mom. Period. She acted like everything about me was a burden. If I needed help reaching something, I'd get the whole lecture about how, if you just tried harder, you could do it yourself. If I asked her to take me to a doctor's appointment, half the time she'd forget and blame me for not reminding her enough. I remember one time my chair broke. The wheel jammed and it was wobbling so bad I could barely push straight. Instead of fixing it, she told me to just deal with it until Dad got home from his trip. That was 2 weeks where I was basically trapped in my room because she didn't want to take me anywhere. When Dad finally came back and saw it, he lost it. He fixed it himself the same night. And Mom? She just shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. She brushed it off as a one-time thing, said the chair had only just jammed, and he wanted to believe her. So he kept thinking things at home were fine. The food situation wasn't great either. Dad always gave her money for groceries, but she'd blow a chunk of it on herself. New clothes, makeup, whatever she was into that month. I'd end up with frozen dinners or leftovers from 2 nights ago while she ordered takeout for herself. If I complained, she'd snap back with stuff like, "What do you expect me to do? Cook every night for you like some maid?" Meanwhile, Dad thought everything was fine at home because whenever he asked, she put on this big performance like she was holding the house together while he worked. And I couldn't say anything because she made it clear what would happen if I did. "If you ever tell your dad I'm not taking care of you, you'll regret it," she said once. I asked what she meant, and she leaned down so close I could smell her breath and whispered, "Don't test me." That was enough to shut me up for years, so I kept quiet. I learned to figure things out on my own, even if it meant going without. I got good at making excuses for her. If Dad asked why I looked skinny, I'd say I wasn't hungry. If he asked why the house was a mess, I'd say I forgot to clean. I protected her lies because I was scared of her, plain and simple. The older I got, the worse it felt. I'd scroll through social media and see other kids my age posting about their moms taking them shopping, cheering for them at games, even just joking around with them. And I'd look over at mine, sitting on the couch scrolling her phone, ignoring me unless she wanted something. Sometimes I'd catch her just staring at me with this look, like I was some mistake she got stuck with. I think the worst part was how normal it became for me. I didn't even think about telling a teacher or anyone else. What was I going to say? My mom doesn't cook for me sometimes? Who would even care? Plus, the fear of her finding out kept me in line. I believed her threats. When you depend on someone to literally help you get around, you don't exactly want to piss them off. So that was my life. Dad away working, Mom treating me like dead weight. Every once in a while, she'd have her good days, where she'd actually act like a parent, make me dinner, sit and talk for a bit. But those were rare, and they usually happened right before Dad came home, like she wanted me to remember how to play along. Looking back, there were signs she was checked out way before everything blew up. The way she dressed up even when she wasn't going anywhere. The long phone calls where she'd leave the room. Sometimes she'd come home late, smelling like cheap booze and perfume, slurring her words while pretending she was just tired. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I was too busy trying to keep my head down and not give her a reason to flip on me. But the truth is, I always knew something was off. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. I didn't know that the same person who was supposed to protect me was going to turn into someone I'd eventually need protection from. And it all started with the lies she made me help her keep. I thought I could survive the last 2 years quietly. Just stay out of her way, keep my mouth shut, and wait it out. But I was wrong, because that was the year I found out what she was really doing when Dad was gone. And that was the year she said words to me that I'll never forget, no matter how old I get. Words that burned themselves into me like scars. Dad had gone out of town again for work. That was pretty normal, and by that point I was used to it. He'd usually leave on a Monday and be gone for a couple nights, sometimes the whole week depending on what job he was covering. Before he left, he always made sure the fridge had food and that I was set up. He trusted Mom to handle the rest, which honestly was the joke of the century. The second his truck pulled out of the driveway, she changed. I don't even mean slowly. It was like flipping a switch. She didn't even try to keep up the I'm a mom act anymore. She'd disappear into her room for hours with her phone, laughing at messages, putting on makeup even if she wasn't going anywhere. The vibe in the house was just weird. I didn't like it, but I didn't say anything. By then, silence had become my default survival tactic. That Tuesday night, though, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I was in the living room, headphones half on, playing a game on my laptop when I heard the front door open, which was weird because she hadn't said anything about going out or having anyone over. A few seconds later, I heard voices. A man's voice. Low, laughing, way too comfortable for someone who was just a friend. At first, I thought maybe it was one of Dad's buddies stopping by, but then I heard her giggle. And not just a normal laugh, like the type of laugh she never used with me or Dad. The fake, flirty one. My stomach just sank. I wheeled myself quietly down the hall, not even sure why I was doing it. Part of me didn't want to know, but something pulled me forward. Her bedroom door was cracked open, and I saw them. Her and some guy, sitting way too close, hands all over each other. She wasn't even subtle about it. It was like I wasn't even supposed to exist in that house. I froze. I didn't even know what to feel. Anger, embarrassment, disgust. It was all mashed together. My heart was pounding, and before I could stop myself, I pushed the door open wider. "What the hell is this?" I said. My voice came out shakier than I wanted, but it was loud enough. They both whipped their heads toward me. The guy looked shocked, like a deer caught in headlights. Mom, though? She didn't look embarrassed or scared. She looked pissed. "You need to knock before barging into people's rooms," she snapped, like I was the one out of line. I stared at her. "You're cheating on Dad." The guy muttered something like, "Maybe I should go," and started to get up, but she grabbed his arm and shot me a look that honestly scared me more than anything. "If you tell your father about this," she hissed, "I'll make sure you regret it. You think you're tough? He'll beat the hell out of you before you even get the chance." She jerked her head toward the guy like she actually meant it. My throat went dry. She wasn't bluffing, not the way she looked at me. I'd been threatened before, but this was different. This wasn't just "don't tell Dad I forgot dinner." This was serious. I wanted to roll away, but my hands were glued to the wheels. Then she twisted the knife. "You know what?" she said, her voice low and sharp. "You were the biggest mistake of my life. If I'd had a normal son, my life wouldn't look like this. You ruined everything. You've done nothing but drag me down since the day you were born." It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. I just stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to laugh and say she didn't mean it. But she didn't. She just stared back at me like she wanted me to disappear. The guy looked uncomfortable as hell. He muttered again, grabbed his jacket, and slipped out past me. I didn't even care about him. All I could hear was her words repeating in my head. Mistake. Normal son. Ruined everything. I backed out of the room and wheeled myself to mine as fast as I could. She didn't follow. She just shut the door and locked it. That night was the longest night of my life. I laid there staring at the ceiling, my stomach twisting, trying to process it. She'd said some harsh things before, but never like that. Never so clear that she actually wished I didn't exist. And yeah, I was scared. Scared of her. Scared of her boyfriend. Scared of what would happen if I told Dad. But under all that fear, something else started building. Anger. Not just at what she said, but at how she'd gotten away with treating me like garbage for years. How she had Dad fooled into thinking she was this supportive wife while she was sneaking around behind his back. By morning, I knew one thing. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Not this time. Not after what I saw. Not after what she said. If she wanted to threaten me, fine. If she wanted to call me a mistake, fine. But I wasn't going to let her keep pretending to everyone else. The problem was, I didn't have proof. If I just told Dad what I saw, she'd twist it, call me a liar, maybe even convince him I was making it up because I was jealous or acting out. She was good at manipulating him. I needed something solid, something she couldn't talk her way out of. The next day after catching her, I couldn't focus on anything. I didn't play games, didn't even scroll my phone like I usually do. I just kept thinking about what she said. Those words were stuck in my head like they were burned there. Biggest mistake of my life. I wish I had a normal son. I didn't even know how I was supposed to eat breakfast or act like things were fine after hearing that. She, on the other hand, acted like nothing happened. She came out of her room around noon, hair messy, coffee mug in her hand, scrolling through her phone like I wasn't even sitting there. No apology, no explanation, no, I didn't mean what I said, just straight up ignoring me. That honestly told me more than her actual words did. She meant it. She didn't care. I couldn't shake the thought that if I just told Dad, she'd find a way to spin it. She always did. She was good at fake crying and playing the victim. She'd say I misunderstood, or I was lashing out, or even worse, that I made it up because I didn't like her. And Dad, he's not stupid, but he also tries to see the good in people, especially her. He wouldn't want to believe she was that awful. That's when the memory of her logging into WhatsApp on my computer hit me. A couple days back, she'd been whining about her phone freezing up and asked me to help. I opened her account on my laptop so she could check messages while the phone updated. She never logged out, and I never thought twice about it. Until now. I waited until she left to take a shower. My hands were sweating as I rolled over to my desk and powered the computer up. The login was still there, just like I remembered. No password prompt, nothing. Her chats were all right in front of me. The first couple I clicked were boring. Group chats with her friends, conversations about shopping or gossiping about other people. But then I saw his name. The guy. Her boyfriend. My stomach dropped just seeing it. I opened it, and that's when everything hit me like a truck. It wasn't just flirty messages. It was full-on bragging about sneaking around, mocking Dad, laughing about me. They called me the anchor, like I was something dragging her down. She wrote about how exhausting it was to take care of me, how she felt trapped in her life. I sat there, reading line after line of her ripping me apart to some guy she barely knew, and then I saw it. The part that made my blood run cold. I'd already read her calling me a burden, mocking me to him, saying I dragged her life down. She'd even bragged about how she could make me pay if I ever crossed her. Then I saw this part that made my blood run cold. He wrote, "You know, things would be a lot easier if you didn't have to worry about him. Ever think about that?" She replied, "Maybe I just have to kill him," with a laughing emoji. And he answered back, "Haha, brutal but smart." And it wasn't just some one-off joke. This came after message of her trashing me, threatening me, and laughing about how I ruined her life. That made it clear she wasn't joking. She meant it, even if she tried to hide it behind an emoji. I swear my hands started shaking so hard I could barely hold the mouse. It wasn't just cheating anymore. It wasn't just her hating me. They were literally joking about me dying like it was some stupid punchline. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. I kept scrolling, looking for more, but I couldn't take much. I didn't need to. That one message was enough. Enough for Dad to see the truth. Enough to finally prove everything I'd been living with. I pulled out my phone and started taking screenshots. Every single message that mattered. The threats. The insults. Her sick joke. All of it. I saved them to a folder, then backed them up to a USB stick I had in my drawer. I wasn't taking any chances with her finding out and deleting the account. The whole time I was doing this, my heart was pounding, like she was going to walk in any second. Every sound in the house made me jump. The shower turned off down the hall, and I nearly dropped the stick trying to eject it. I shoved it under some books on my shelf right before she came out. When she walked past my door, she didn't even glance in. She just went straight to her room, still scrolling on her phone, probably texting him again. I sat there staring at my computer screen, the chat window still open, and felt this mix of rage and relief. Rage because I couldn't believe my own mom was capable of saying that about me. Relief because finally, I had something real. Not just my word against hers. The rest of that day, I barely spoke to her. She didn't notice or didn't care. She ordered food for herself and left me to figure out dinner. I didn't even care. My appetite was gone anyway. I just kept thinking about Dad, about how I was going to show him everything, about how he'd react. For years, I'd been carrying this weight around, hiding how bad things really were because I was scared. And now, I had proof. I didn't have to be scared anymore. That night, lying in bed, I kept replaying how I was going to do it. I couldn't just blurt it out on the phone while he was away. Too risky, she could overhear. I had to wait until he came back, show him the screenshots in person, look him in the eye, and finally let it all out. It was the first night in a long time that I actually felt something close to hope. Like maybe, just maybe, things were going to change. I didn't know yet how explosive the confrontation was going to be, or how ugly she was going to get when Dad finally saw what she really was. But I knew this much. The silence was over. Dad came back 2 days later. I was waiting the entire time like my life depended on it. I didn't sleep much. I kept checking that USB stick every couple hours like it was treasure. In a way, it was. It was my way out. The night he pulled up, I could hear the truck in the driveway. I don't think I've ever rolled so fast to the door in my life. He looked tired like always. But the second he saw me, his whole face softened. He hugged me the way dads do when they're glad to be home. I almost broke down right there, but I forced myself to hold it together. We had dinner, leftovers he'd brought back from the trip because she hadn't cooked. She played her role like usual, smiling, asking him about work, acting like she'd been this caring wife while he was gone. I sat there quiet, heart pounding so hard I could barely swallow. Before dinner, I slipped the drive under my shirt. I wasn't risking her snooping through my room and finding it. When we finished, she went to take a call in the other room. That's when I made my move. I wheeled into Dad's office and called him in. He looked confused at first. Probably thought I wanted help with homework or something. I shut the door and pulled the USB out from under my shirt. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking, "I need you to see something." He looked at me, then at the stick, then back at me. "What is this?" I plugged it in and pulled up the screenshots folder. My hands were sweaty, but I clicked open the worst ones first. The ones where she called me a burden, where they joked about getting rid of me, where she dropped the line about killing me with a laughing emoji. He stared at the screen. At first, his face was blank, like he couldn't even process it. Then it twisted into this look I'll never forget. Not just anger, disbelief, betrayal, like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. "Where did you get these?" he asked quietly. She logged into her WhatsApp on my computer months ago. She never logged out. I found it. He scrolled through more, his breathing heavy. "You're telling me she said this? To him?" I nodded. "Dad, I saw them together. Here, in her room, when you were gone. I confronted her, and she told me I was the biggest mistake of her life. She said she wished she had a normal son. She said if I told you, she'd have him beat me up." That broke him. His hands clenched into fists. He slammed the laptop shut and stood up so fast the chair tipped back. For a second I thought he might punch the wall, but he didn't. He just breathed hard through his nose, then said, "Stay here." He stormed down the hall. I followed as far as the doorway. She was on the couch, phone in her hand, laughing at whatever was on the screen. He snatched it out of her hand and threw it on the floor. It cracked against the tile. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, his voice louder than I'd ever heard. She jumped up, already defensive. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me," he yelled. "You've been screwing around behind my back, talking about your own son like he's garbage, joking about killing him? You're insane." Her face went pale for a second. Then she recovered and tried to act offended. "Oh my God, he showed you those? You don't actually believe him, do you? He's just making stuff up because he hates me." Dad pointed at her, shaking with anger. "I saw the messages with my own eyes. Don't you dare try to twist this. Don't you dare." She started crying then, fake tears, trying to grab his arm. "It was just a joke. I didn't mean it. You don't understand how stressed I've been." That was her go-to line for everything. Stress. But Dad wasn't buying it this time. He pulled his arm back like her touch burned him. "You don't joke about killing your kid. You don't cheat on your husband while he's out breaking his back to provide for you. You don't treat your son like trash while pretending you're some perfect mother." His voice broke on that last part. And that's when she turned on me. "This is all your fault!" she screamed, pointing at me like I was some monster. "You've ruined everything. If you weren't so damn needy, if you weren't stuck in that chair, maybe I wouldn't have had to look for something else. You think you're some saint? You're the reason this family is falling apart." My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might stop. She started moving toward me, her face twisted, eyes wide. For a second, I thought she was actually going to hit me. Dad stepped in front of me so fast she almost ran into him. "Don't you lay a hand on him," he growled. His voice was low now, scarier than when he was yelling. "You're done here. Get out." She froze, then started screaming again, calling both of us ungrateful, saying we were throwing her away after everything she'd done. But Dad didn't budge. He grabbed her purse, tossed it at her, and pointed at the door. "Leave. Now." She tried one last time, sobbing, begging, saying she didn't have anywhere to go. He just stared at her. That's not my problem anymore. When she realized he wasn't going to give in, she grabbed her things and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. For a few seconds, the whole house was silent except for my breathing. Dad turned back to me. His eyes were red, but he knelt down beside me and put his hand on my shoulder. "You're safe now," he said. "I promise you." She's not coming back in this house. For the first time in years, I believed him. That night, I slept without locking my door. It was the first time in a long time I didn't feel like I had to. But even as I drifted off, I knew it wasn't over. If I knew my mom at all, she wasn't going to go quietly. She'd find a way to make everything uglier before it was done. And I was right. Dad didn't waste time. The very next morning, he was on the phone with a lawyer. I overheard him in his office, pacing back and forth, explaining everything. He told them about the cheating, about the threats, about the messages. He didn't even sugarcoat it. He said flat out that she was unstable and dangerous around me. Within a week, paperwork started moving. Divorce, custody, restraining orders. It was a blur, but I remember sitting in the lawyer's office with Dad while he signed documents. They asked me questions too. If I felt safe, if she had ever hit me, if I wanted to live with Dad full time. It was the first time I ever said those things out loud to someone who could actually do something about it. I told them everything. The neglect, the threats, the way she'd use me like a punching bag for her bad moods. I admitted I'd been scared to speak up because of what she might do if I did. The lawyer looked at me seriously and said, "You did the right thing by telling the truth. No one should ever have to live like that." When it went to court, Mom tried her performance routine again. She showed up in this outfit that made her look put together, hair done, fake tears ready. She said she was just overwhelmed, that she was under pressure taking care of me while Dad was away for work. She tried to flip the narrative, make herself sound like some martyr who just snapped. But then Dad's lawyer dropped the bomb. The screenshots. Every message printed out in black and white. Her words. Her laughing emojis. Her boyfriend agreeing. The courtroom went dead quiet while the judge read through them. Her face turned red, then pale. She looked at me like I was the one who betrayed her. But she couldn't deny it. Not when it was right there on paper. The judge didn't hold back. He said her behavior was disturbing and completely unacceptable for a parent. Custody went to Dad. Full stop. She wasn't allowed back in the house. The restraining order wasn't permanent, but it gave us breathing room. The judge limited her to supervised visits. I told them I didn't want that, and the court noted my choice. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt lighter. Dad squeezed my shoulder and said, "It's over, son. She's not going to hurt you again." But for her, it was just the beginning of the crash. Word spread through the family fast. My grandparents, uncles, aunts, they all found out. Some of them didn't even believe it at first, but when they heard about the screenshots, they cut her off too. My grandma on Dad's side called me and said, "No mother should ever say those things about her child. She's dead to me." That hit me harder than I expected. Not in a sad way, but in a finally someone sees it way. On her side, a couple of relatives tried to defend her at first, saying she must have been stressed or didn't mean it. But when they realized how serious it was, even they pulled back. Nobody wanted to be associated with what she'd done. Meanwhile, Dad and I started building a new routine. He cut back on his travel, took assignments closer to home so he could be there more. He admitted one night over dinner that he felt guilty for being gone so much, for not noticing how bad things were. I told him it wasn't his fault, that she hid it well, and I was too scared to tell him. We both sat there quietly for a while, but it wasn't an awkward quiet, more like understanding. But while our life slowly stabilized, hers unraveled. She had no savings. Most of the money Dad gave her over the years was gone, spent on herself or wasted. She tried moving in with one of her friends, but that lasted a month before she got kicked out for not paying her share of rent. After that, she ended up in some rundown apartment on the edge of town. She called Dad a few times, asking for money. He didn't even answer. She left voicemails saying things like, "Don't do this to me, I have nothing," and "You're ruining me." Dad just blocked the number. The boyfriend, the guy I caught her with, was still around at first. They were seen together a couple times, but people said he looked uncomfortable whenever she talked about me or Dad. It was obvious he wasn't built to handle her drama. I didn't care what happened between them. I didn't care if she begged, cried, or screamed. For once in my life, I felt untouchable from her. She had no power left over me. Every day that went by without her in the house felt like healing. I could eat without worrying if she'd yell at me. I could call Dad whenever I wanted. I could sleep without double-checking my lock. It was simple stuff, but to me, it felt like freedom. Sometimes I wondered if she realized how badly she'd messed up. If she ever laid in that crappy apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying what she said to me. Biggest mistake of my life. Wish I had a normal son. The kind of words you can't take back. But then I remembered how she looked in court, glaring at me like I was the one who ruined her. And I knew the truth. She'd never really see herself as the problem. In her head, it was always someone else's fault. Mine. Dad's. Anyone but her. The only difference now was that nobody believed her anymore. And honestly, I didn't feel sorry. Not one bit. 6 months went by faster than I expected. Life at home settled into something that felt normal. Me and Dad had our routines down. He wasn't traveling as much, and when he did, he'd make sure someone checked in on me. He cooked. He actually asked me about school. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had a parent who cared. The tension in the house was gone. No more yelling, no more walking on eggshells, no more worrying what mood she'd be in when she came out of her room. It was quiet, but in a good way. I didn't hear much about her at first. She'd been cut off from us completely, but small things slipped through. Whispers from family members or neighbors. Stuff like, she's not doing well, or she's been bouncing around trying to stay afloat. I ignored most of it. I didn't want updates. Then one of my cousins called me and gave me the rundown. Mom had blown through whatever little money she had left. She was living in some trashy apartment, behind on rent. People saw her arguing with the landlord out front. She'd apparently lost weight, not in a healthy way, but from stress and barely eating. And the cherry on top, her boyfriend dumped her for a younger woman. Hearing that hit me weird. Not sadness, not satisfaction exactly, just finality. Like, yeah, of course he left. Guys like that never stick around once the drama gets real. Then came the health stuff. Word spread that she'd been in and out of the hospital. Doctors said her liver was shot. Probably years of treating her body like garbage finally catching up. I heard someone mention permanent damage. Again, I didn't feel bad. Actions have consequences. She chose her path. I thought that would be the end of it. Just background noise about her circling the drain. But I should have known better. She wasn't done trying to drag us back into it. One night, out of nowhere, she showed up at our house. It was a Saturday. Me and Dad were watching a movie in the living room when we heard pounding on the front door. Not knocking. Pounding. Dad opened it, and there she was. She looked nothing like the version of her I remembered. Her hair was a mess. Her face was drawn out, eyes red like she hadn't slept. She was skinnier, clothes hanging loose, and she smelled like sweat and cheap perfume. She was crying before she even said a word. "Please," she begged, "I have nowhere else to go." Dad didn't move. He just stood there blocking the doorway. "You need to leave." She pushed past him anyway, stumbling into the living room. Her eyes locked on me immediately. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, hands out like she was going to hug me. "I made mistakes, but you're still my son. Please, just talk to me." I froze. My stomach turned just seeing her. I didn't feel anger or fear anymore, just nothing, like she was a stranger. Dad stepped between us. "You don't get to come back here after everything you did. You don't get to waltz in and pretend it didn't happen." She broke down harder, dropping to her knees on the carpet. "I'm sick. I'm dying. Don't do this to me. I need you. Both of you." Her voice cracked, snot running down her face, and for a second, the old version of me, the one who used to beg for her approval, wanted to feel something. But all I could hear in my head was her voice from that night. "You were the biggest mistake of my life. I wish I had a normal son. That doesn't just go away because she's crying now. You need help," Dad told her firmly. "And we're not it. You've burned every bridge. The only one left is professional help. Rehab, treatment, whatever. But you're not dragging us back down with you." She snapped then. The crying turned to rage in an instant. She glared at me, finger pointing like a weapon. "This is your fault," she screamed. "If you weren't such a burden, none of this would have happened. You ruined my life." The neighbors probably heard every word. Dad stepped forward and said through gritted teeth, "Get out before I call the cops." She had a meltdown right there on the driveway when he shoved her out. She kicked at the door, sobbing, yelling about how unfair it was, how we were heartless. Lights turned on across the street. People peeked out windows. The humiliation didn't stop her. It fueled her. Dad called the police. They showed up, and by then she was sitting on the curb, crying into her hands. They spoke to her for a while, then put her in the back of a car and drove her off. The restraining order was still in place. When the cops showed up, they logged it as a violation. Instead of cuffing her right there, they treated it as a welfare case. She was such a mess they put her on a psychiatric hold. We stood there watching until the taillights disappeared. Dad didn't say much. He just sighed, locked the door, and sat back down. We never even finished the movie. Later that week, we heard she'd been admitted into rehab. Not voluntarily, more like forced after the cops realized she was a danger to herself. I didn't visit. I didn't write. I didn't even ask for updates. I'd already made my peace. She was gone long before the cops picked her up. The messed up part? I didn't feel guilty. Not at all. I felt relieved. People ask if I'll ever forgive her. Honestly, Number forgiveness isn't some magic button you press because someone cries about being sorry. Forgiveness is earned, and she cashed out her chances a long time ago. I'm not angry anymore, though. That surprised me. Anger eats you up if you hold it too long, and I guess I just let it go. She destroyed herself. I don't need to pile on. All I know is this. I've got my dad, I've got my future, and I've got peace. She's broke, alone, and in rehab. That's her reality now. Mine is finally living without fear. And if that sounds cold, so be it. I didn't choose this story. She wrote it hers.